Hey guys, and welcome back to the audio workshop where we talk about mixing, mastering, recording, songwriting, and all that fun stuff in all terms of music and for new engineers and seasoned engineers alike. And this is Mason from masondayatmixing.com, masondayatproductions.com. And let's go ahead and get started. So today I want to talk about something also philosophical. My furnace just turned on. Something philosophical as well as a workflow technique. It's not too specifically, it's not fun. It's not a fun thing to talk about, but it is so important, especially for mixing engineers and also tracking engineers as well. But this video is focused more on the mixing side, and it is called making a template. Okay, so a lot of people would open up a new session, have a blank session, and create tracks, how much they think they'll need, and then put their favorite plugins on it every time. That takes time. That takes time to do that every single time. It doesn't seem like a lot, but it does take time. And if you're using like a program like Pro Tools, sometimes it'll crash when you're putting plugins on your channel, and it's kind of annoying when it does crash. So we're trying to avoid that here. But the whole idea is that you have pretty much in your analog studio, you have your consoles already set up. Your consoles are already set up. Everything's patched. All your outboard gear is already pre-patched in. You already got your sends already ready to go. You got your consoles channels on. Your mix bus is ready to go as well. And it's just pretty much having everything set up. So you're thinking less about technical setups and thinking about, okay, where's that plugin? Oh, where's that? I want to add a compressor. I gotta go find it. Gotta find it. No, you just have it there with you, and it's already there. So you don't have to do that later. You don't stop the creative process. You are just going with the flow. You're racing on the race car, and you just keep going. And when you have the tool, you have it right there where you need it, right on the dashboard. You don't have to go to the back seat in the trunk of your car and get your compressor plug-in, plug it in, get it ready to go, do the settings, all that. Ideally, you can have all the settings already set up because you already know how you're gonna mix. But for this video, I want to show you my template, my personal mixing template, and I want to know what your templates are. I want people to engage with this post and be like, okay, I use this is how I work, because I know, and I want to know your mentality behind it. And I'm going to quickly explain each of my mentalities for this template. So the first thing I want to tell you is that my template always has 48 channels. It was actually kind of inspired by CLA's console. I read a post somewhere that of his setup, and he's my favorite mixing engineer of all time. So I like to, if he can get the work done and he can do it, then I can do it too. So I really did adopt it over the years, and it's evolved into this current template, which I use every single time I mix. So I have 48 channels of just straight tracks. And then it gets separated by VCAs, and then your mix bus, and then I got some extra aux channels here, and then of course all my effects are all on this side here, and then I have my vocal rider channel at the very end here. And that's gonna go quickly through all the mentalities here. So pretty much here I got my 4 extra channels, which I usually call free space. So usually if it's a 2-track or if it's an extra random synth or something like that, I'll put it on there. We got my percussions here. I already pre-named everything. In the beginning, I didn't name anything. I just left it as audio 1, 2, and 3 and all that stuff because I didn't know technically what I'd be doing. But usually, most of the time, when I'm working and recording in my own studio, I know what instruments I'm going to be using and when I'm going to be using it. So I already have these set up, and it's not too hard to just change the names after the fact. So I got my percussion here, and then these channels here go to the pianos, and then these will become strings if anything. Then we got my lead vocal channel, always the same, and I could just duplicate this track if I want. It's a flexible workflow, so I could just duplicate this if I really wanted to. I got a double, triple, harmonies, overdubs, bass parts, bass bus, guitars, and then my drums, which is always loaded, but I'll go through those later, and VCAs. Then we got the mix bus here. We got this. This is a chain, a special drum chain that I always use, and they're already kind of preset there because I like to keep everything simple and ready to go. Because if I could just dial in the sound push up the send and it has the sound I want, it's already ready to go. I don't have to go in and tweak. I'm not really a tweaking kind of person that likes to experiment. I like everything to work off the bat and just work, and I don't have to think about technical stuff. So I like to set all this stuff up later, or set this stuff up earlier before I even get into the mixing room. And then I have all my different types of delays here, and I referenced all what each one does, and then they all go to this effects bus here. So also at each channel I have a bus that each one is routed to. So the bus goes here. You got the piano strings and keys. They all go here. Lead voxes by itself go straight to the mix bus, and then all the BGVs. If I wanted to route these overdubs or something together, like left-right harmonies, they'll go into these. If I have more, I can always duplicate. These go into the bass bus. Guitars, usually these guys, like the rhythms will go in one, leads will go in another, cleans will go in another. And the drums, of course, all go to a drum bus. So I want you to know that all these are also routed to a mix bus. So everything goes straight into a mix bus and then into the monitor bus. So why don't we start top down of how my workflow goes. So I like to start everything from the monitor channel. So I have my two types of monitoring. I have my ARC 2, which is set up for my studio. And I could also change that to like a NS10s or the Genelex or something like that. So I like to keep it flat. Or NS10s when I'm doing mid-range stuff. The next thing I use is my SonarWorks. So whenever I'm starting a mix, I'll usually start it on the headphones, especially for low end. So I could deal with that, and it's actually calibrated to the headphones that I do have, so it works out. Then I have my VU meters, which I usually throw up here at all times. Then I have my Slate Digital FGX, which is always chilling, has the limiting on, so I know how it's going to sound on there, but half the time I kind of forget about it, which is good. I try to set and forget a lot of things. Blue Cat Patchwork was just Ozone. Magic AB, an essential one for sure, 100%. I have this here all the time for my reference tracks. Everything always goes through a tape machine, 2-track tape machine. So you can have all the saturation, so you mix into that. Then we have my Pultec always on there, 1-to-1, special Pultec technique. You all should know about that. It's pretty much just adds the bottom and the top to it, and the Pultec really does something for that. And then I got my compression, which I always bypass first. Everything when I set a compression, I always set it up after, so you're not like tricked by the loudness level or the sound of the compressor working too hard if maybe the gain staging wasn't right on the way in. So I'll go through each one and test each one out. I usually use all three, to be honest. And then after that, I got my VMR, of course. We got the mix bus going, drive it like a bitch. We got top end here is another Pultec. I added this. I barely use this one, but if I do, I can have it right there, so I don't have to go and grab it from the interface, which is still pretty intuitive to do. I got Revival here, and then I got FG Bomber on the thing, and then I got checking my tracking levels with Trim. Let's go drums. So top-down method again. So the drums, I have everything set up here. It all goes into a channel, so I'll change that to the Neve if I want to get that flavor. But I like to keep everything like an SSL console, so I don't really change the channel emulations. Everything I'm imagining I'm mixing through SSL. And but again, over the years, these have changed. I've kind of become a little bit more flexible with that. Drums all go into the FG Gray, and also tape machine if I want to add some more realism to it. I want to tell you what I have on every single drum channel here. So I always have every channel. I always have a trim plugin. So just in case it's too loud when it was sent to me, or I want to just make everything balanced, I can gain stage from here instead of pushing the fader and affecting the resolution of the fader. I like to just get everything sitting at 0 at -18. Then everything goes to a tape machine to get the analog sound. So it's always 16 track, 30 IPS every single time. So it's like I tracked it through a tape machine, and then it's getting mixed through a 2-inch, which is a half inch, and it always sounds good there. Then I have M auto line. So instead of manually doing the phase, I could just do all the phase with this whole drum set here. Just using this one plugin and just analyzing it, and then it's done. And then everything sounds even more fatter than it did before. Then I could use drum leveler if I want to balance out some snare hits or something, or the kicks. I just want to make it a little bit smoother, which then can go into trigger, which I have here. And this is pretty much, I have it bypassed because I don't always use samples. I usually tend to, like 80 or 90% of the time, so that's why I always have it there, so I don't have to go grab it every single time. but it does take up some processing power, so I have that as inactive, so it's not going to try and open up when I open up this template. And then, of course, everything goes to the same. I always have the same thing every single time for drums. So, I always have my consoles first, and then I'll have an 1176 inactive. And then if I want to swap that out, I could just throw in the FG 401, which is like the SSL and a mix of other stuff. And then I got my SSL for cutting, and then I got my knee for boosting, and then I got my FG bomber to clean it, to like add some more extra icing on the cake, and then check the trim levels after every time. And then I always throw in, just in case that wasn't cutting it for me, instead of grabbing the EQ. As you know, I like to be very intuitive, and I don't like to go through menus and stuff like that, even though I do have it here on my quick menu. I have my air EQ, which is already set up for kick drum. So I know that every time I can just, I can very easily just add some stuff or cut and stuff like that very, very easily without even having to think about technicalities and stuff. And if it doesn't work, then I'll tweak it, or maybe I'll use something else. But half the time, these tools I know are tried and true for me, and I always use them every single time. I also get my overheads routed to an overhead channel here. Toms also just for extra glue, just in case when they're going across the spectrum, it can get a little pokey and can come out of nowhere. So this kind of just flattens them out and keeps it in control. And the rooms, I usually don't do that much processing on the rooms itself. I usually just, send them all to a bus, do some cutting, do some boosting on the low end or something, and cut out the low end, bring up the high end, If I want to throw some compression, I'll do the 1176. But my go-to is my API 2500 that I always have ready to go on the rooms, because that's the best one for me. And then I always have... It took me a while to get a parallel bus going. I used to always set it up every single time to set up a parallel bus. And then now I could just do, I could do a send that goes into the parallel bus. If I could even find the thing. If I can find it. Here it is. Here, P drums. And I just send it there. And all the time, usually my sends are just nominal, because I just, less things to tweak, more things to focus on, which is the music. If I go to guitars here, it's pretty much the same thing. And then I just have them all to a bus with my own personal EQs that I always have. Then my CLA 3A is always on there. If I want to do some compression, that's the best one that sounded for me. And of course, I use the C4 multiband. If sometimes the low end, like for like a metal track or something, the low end's a little crazy, or the high end is kind of abrasive, especially for amp sims. It can get a little abrasive, so I have that ready to go just in case. And yeah, the bass guitar I have pretty much. If you watch my other video about bass and setting up bass, this will be used for sub. So I already have a Pro Q2 that's ready to go that cuts out all the low end. And then I got a Pro Q here that cuts out the high end and the low end for the other one, the distortion channel and stuff like that. And then usually for my distortion, I'll use the CLA bass, which has very, very, very useful distortions that I just have ready to go and cranked. And then I could just blend to taste with the faders here if I wanted to adjust that. So instead of doing so many parameters tweaking, I could just do it just by using the fader, which is a very simplified way. And then I got a bass rider here, make sure that's going well, just balance out the bass. And then I got the VMR as well, just to do final EQ on the entire thing. And I believe I usually keep everything clean. I usually don't set up things, like preset them up, because then I kind of get confused of how something sounds. So I like to just start fresh off the get-go, and then of course have stage compression for the bass as well. Lead vocal, I'm just gonna say all these other vocals here always have the same channel pretty much, and they all pretty much just go to these buses here, which is just an overall EQ, a de-esser, air EQ again just in case, and some hard compression on the CLA 2A. And the lead vox, I'm sure a lot of you would want to know about this one, because vocals are probably the most important element. So of course tape. Then I got some EQ. Sometimes I'll take out this EQ and I'll just use the VMR's console saturation if I find that the air EQ is doing a better job. But I usually use the air EQ for cutting, which I have the vocal correction preset here. So cut out the box, the nasal, resonance, acid, cut out the DS. And that's pretty much all this one's doing. And then this one is going to be boosting, with a nice silky Neve, or the custom series EQ. Has a really smooth top end, which I do like, which is great. And then of course I have my go-to CLA 76, and then I have my go-to LA 2A, which I always put these into every single time. And then sometimes You'll have a vocal that has some resonance here, so I'll use the peak analyzer on the Pro Q and just cut out some stuff there if it's getting a little crazy. And if that doesn't work or it doesn't sound as good, I always throw on the C4 anyway to just bring out some vocals. Sometimes the resonance of your room and your vocalist and the mic will add this resonance that really hurts your ears. So this is a very good way to get that done. And I kind of shameful to use this, but I'll use the Pensato vocal preset, which I've always found that works for me. So I love that. I love that. Love that. Pianos, I don't do these that much, so I pretty much just kept it pretty clean. Just whatever SSL console, if it's grouped, the same thing, and then everything just goes to an LA2A. It's a very expensive console and a studio if you in the digital world, I suppose. And then same thing for the VMR. I keep it really simple, just a console compression and just SSL, very simple stuff. And then for these ones, it's just free slots, just an SSL channel, and then maybe some compression if I need it. But lots of time these are like tracks or something like that. So that's it for the channels. I just want to show you quickly this one, which is, the secret technique that Steven Slate showed on his video about how to get good drum sounds. And, you'll have a kick sample. I usually just pick whatever. And then, you can do another snare sample here. You can do another snare sample here. The snare sample here is usually like a ringy snare that you'll use to get some overtones in your drums if they sound a little dead, especially if you're doing it in the basement or something like that. You'll get a really nice big sound with this. And you also have a faux space here, which is pretty much something that you can just do to create some extra space. You can go ahead and take a picture of these settings, and you'll be able to create some more extra space, especially if you record it in a small room. So this technique is very useful, and these are all pretty much used as sends for the kick and the snare, and they just sent back to it as well. And there's also a panning preset that I have here because it kind of screws up the spectrum here. For reverbs, I have these all preset, especially for reverbs, because a lot of people like to tweak reverbs forever and ever and ever, and like try to find the best one. I just found ones that I like, and I just use them because I just like them. So I just have them ready to go all the time. So I just have this one, a short one, and I got a medium, and I just use one reverb. I don't like to overcomplicate things. Delays, I use one delay. H delay is probably the best one I've ever used. So I just have different timings for each one, which I know I always gonna go into, like a slap, quarter delay, 8 delay, all the time. And then if I want to do some extra reverb stuff that's not these standard short, medium, long verbs, I'll have like some specific ones that I usually always grab toward and stuff, and like the PCM 91, deverb. This deverb is actually crazy. A lot of people don't like deverb, but the ambient on the church setting on the deverb is my favorite. It's so magical. It's a very magical thing. This is a hall verb using I think this is a PCM as well. Yeah, PCM 90 impulse response, which is great. And the cool thing is that all these effects go also into another constant saturation, which is glitched right now. I should fix that. But these also go into a constant saturation, which will add some more saturation on top of that. I love saturation all the time. And then I, of course, have my vocal writer channel that you guys all know about and my other video. But that's pretty much it. This is pretty much my template, and it's something I use all the time. Also, the groups always set up as well, and the VCA set up as well. So if I just wanted to adjust all the VCAs, I could just do that from here. So if I were to just move this, it just moves everything as well. So it's very nice for gain staging and stuff like that when you're doing some soloing stuff. But yeah, this is my workflow, and I want to know your workflows too, because this is such an important thing to have. It's such an important thing to use a template and have something that's already preset for you, so you don't have to go in there and dig and try and create something new every single time. Find plugins that work for you. It also helps you limit yourself this year and not having to use a million plugins. As you can see, I only use one plugin for most of my EQ and my compression techniques. So you can do it too. You don't have to get the latest toy all the time. You don't have to get the latest thing. You don't have to have a million compressors. Just have one or two, maybe three tops of your favorite plugins and just work with them. Use them all the time. Use a template and just keep working at it. Focus on developing your skills, focus on the music and not the technology. That is something I really, really stand by. Whenever I explain things, I don't go into technical or sciencey kind of stuff or, worrying about frequencies all the time, all that stuff. Yeah, it's important. It's important, but I mix in a very, very musical way. And I think that is the way that separates the amateurs from the pros. When you're mixing musically and you just worry less about the technology and more about feeling the music and making the artist's music really pop out and feel good, and you stop hearing the mix and you just hear the music, that's when you know you've done your job. And if you're going to be doing this a lot, it saves you so much time, especially if you're aspiring to become a mixing engineer that do this on an everyday basis like I am. Having a template always works. I've used this template for over a year now, and I really recommend you get a template going. So go into your DAW, go create a template. You can just, once you have this ready, you just go save as template, done. And then you have it ready to go and it's already done. Okay, guys, so this has been the audio workshop. Go make a template. Go make a template. It's the most important thing you could do. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you leave some comments and let me know about your templates and what you guys do and your thoughts in your workflow process. It's pretty interesting how you can see how people work and different techniques they like to use just by looking at their templates. And if they don't have one, then maybe they're just like that, or that's the way they think. But it's an interesting thing to talk about. All right, guys, this has been Mason from the Audio Workshop. I hope to see you next time. See you on the flip side.